Welcome back to another feature video here on Golioth, and we're going to be going over a new feature called Output Streams, which allows you to export all of the things that are happening, all of the events that might happen on your Golioth account as they happen, and you can put them out to a lot of different places now. We're going to be talking with Alvaro, our lead engineer. Alvaro, welcome to it. What are Output Streams?
Cool. Awesome to be here, but now presenting like one of our latest features. So output streams, it's like you just described it. It's a way for getting the events that are happening on the platform to an outside service. Because we know that as your application gets more complex, you need to add like more rules to what is happening in the device communication, or even like save on your own database or transform the data that is being generated by the device. There's a lot of other things that you want to do on your devices, like I said, after your application gets more complex. So output streams is a way for you to do that on our platform. So we're basically enabling you to get all the events that are happening internally, and you can basically consume that on whatever way you want to do it.
Yeah. So I think about it like, so if I have a device that's piping all its data to Golioth, there's a couple ways we can get at it, right? So we could, if we had state-based data, we could go and get it from the REST API. We've talked about web streams.
Sockets?
No, that's
Web
sockets. Yeah, all these names, they all seem like similar to me. So web sockets, there's a way to have the Golioth API kind of ping your update service and say, hey, like we have the new Grafana plugin that uses WebSockets. And now this is another way to basically say, okay, now the data is just going to go straight out to something else you've got going on. So it might be a Amazon instance or an Azure instance. Say you're working with a team internally, like your IT group is all AWS and you want to put all your data there. Great. Or Azure, it's all there. And then Webhooks is another one. So how would you delineate Webhooks from the Azure stuff, from the AWS stuff? Like what is actually happening in each of these cases? Like what does the data look like?
So to first like outline those differences, the webhook one is the more generic one, because we're basically going to be sending like HTTP requests to your own server that is running like anywhere basically. So maybe you have like a VM on DigitalOcean that you wrote like a Python server that is like receiving those data points and then saving to InfluxDB. Like you can do that with webhooks, or you can choose a more scalable way for webhooks, which is to run like a Lambda function on AWS or Cloud Functions on GCP, that those HTTP servers are basically going to scale as you need as the requests come. So you can use webhooks that way, or you can even use like some no-code tools like Pipedream or Node-RED to receive those webhooks and like consume on your flow. So like I said, webhook is the more generic one, but it's not necessarily the most scalable one, because we depend on your server on the other end to be always online. Although we have some logic to retry and like resend the data point, you have the risk of like maybe losing something. If you, after like a long time, your server is offline, you can basically lose that information. But that is not true if we go with the cloud, like public cloud native integration, like we have, for example, with AWS and Azure, because we are sending basically to their message queue implementation, which is not going to be offline that easy. And we are going to be like queuing up that data there, and you can consume as you need. And also like they have multiple services for consuming those data points inside of the platform.
Got it. So it's kind of like with those other services, we're kind of throwing all the data into that branded bucket, right? The AWS bucket or the Azure bucket. And then as you need to, you go pull each individual event out. What is an example of some of the things that might be pinged each time? Is it just an individual data point? Like, so if I'm measuring temperature would it just be just the temperature as it's going out? Or what kind of stuff is actually getting passed between these services?
So basically the event that we are relaying to that external party is also like, it has metadata that we use internally. So basically it's not just the temperature from your device, it's going to be your project ID, your device ID, like the timestamp that data arrived. We also have the source of that event. By the way, we use a cool project internally called Cloud Events, which is like an open standard for like events inside of like cloud native applications. So that's how we capture the source. So for example, if you change IDB from the the cloud API, we are gonna know that the source is the API, Golioth API. If your device is sending data of MQTT, the source is gonna be gateway MQTT, or over CoAP, gateway CoAP. So we added those metadata to the event, and like I said, we use those internally. And output stream is just a way for us to open the events that we use internally for like external users. So you basically can consume whatever way users want.
Right. Yeah. So like the LightDB LED demo that you've shown many times on here in the past that's a great example, right? You can access the individual device, the LightDB state from the web console, and you're saying, LED 0 goes from true to false, and it turns off on the actual device because this thing's listening to it. And then maybe you have a button locally, you press a button, it turns off here, and then it synchronizes, does the digital twin thing. But you want to know if it's the web person or the button person, like that's actually doing it. So that could be really, really important context for how an app might interact with it, or how a visualization platform or whatever is happening, right?
Yeah, that's a really good use case, because you want to know like if that light bulb turned on and off because the user interaction with the device directly, or was like an app. Like we can keep track.
Or is your house haunted? You never know, right? You never know.
You never know. Exactly. Yeah.
Great. So we're going to show a demo here today. So can you walk us through the demo, what this is going to look like?
Sure. Can you share my screen now here? This is my device here. So I have a ESP32S2 here. I'm using CircuitPython here. So by the way, if you guys didn't saw yet, we have a CircuitPython SDK now. So it's a really easy way for prototyping some things. And I have 2 buttons here connected to my device, and also 2 LEDs. So those LEDs here are listening to LightDB state. So if I change data on LightDB state, this LED is going to turn on or off. And those buttons here are also generating LightDB string events. So every time I click this button here, we are going to see like an event of this button was clicked. And also those buttons are also changing the state of the LEDs on LightDB state. So we're basically like going to LightDB state, changing the state, and then going back here. So it was also like a kind of a latency test. So just to explain like what we're doing here. But what I'm going to show here is those buttons events arriving on AWS and also being saved on DynamoDB, which is a database on AWS. So that's a setup that you can do. Basically, maybe you already have a team that knows a lot of like cloud things on AWS. You even have like maybe a mobile team that can use AWS Amplify and build a mobile app. So we at Golioth is going to be only the bridge between your devices and your cloud. And you can use output streams for that, and then you save that data on like AWS and, for example, or Azure or other services like we presented here. And can we show our console here, Chris?
Yeah, that's great.
So I already have some integrations created here, but I'm gonna show real quick how is the setup here. So I can create like a new output stream here. And then right now we have those 3 output streams type, like we just mentioned: Webhooks, Azure Event Hub, and AWS SQS. But of course, we're going to be adding more in the future. We created a structure that's going to be easier to like scale this and add new implementations. So I'm not going to show like the actual creation of each one of them, but like each one of those integrations have like different fields, different parameters that you have to inform to set up them. And I'm going to show here the AWS one that I already have created here. So I made the setup on the cloud to create an SQS queue. I created an access key and secrets to be able to like send to Golioth to be able to send data to that queue. And I have my credentials here. And one thing that you can choose is if you want to consume only specific event types on the platform. So we have here, let me show you here the events that we have. So when you create an output string, you can choose to consume all of the events if you want, but you can also choose just some specific ones from a given service. So you can have like the DFU logs or the normal device logs. You have LightDB state updates and deletes, also LightDB string data points arriving. So you have different events and also as you can imagine, as we are going to be adding more devices service to the platform, you're going to see new events here. But by default, you can also like not choose anything here and you're going to be consuming all the events. But this example here that I have for AWS is consuming only device LightDB string types. And also like the documentation for the different events that you can receive is also on our docs website. So you can see like, oh, what I'm going to be receiving about this event, what are the parameters, like every information that you need maybe on your side of on the cloud, you can also see here what are the parameters you're going to receive. And what else?
So some of the filtering down might just make it a little bit simpler, right? If you're saying I only want, so like in the stream case, that's our time series database. Maybe you only want to see the sensor data coming from your devices. Your web team that's working in AWS, they're like, we only care about the sensor data, all the state stuff that can just stay in the Golioth management console, and you just handle it all there, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and also you can do like more like separate the consumption. So for example, you can create an output stream for SQS to generate just the time series events, like you're saying, and that is going to be consumed by a Lambda function that saves to a different service. And then you can create a new output stream that is for LightDB state, and that is going to save to another database. So you can have like different output streams for different data types, and you can have even like different teams working on different streams to be consumed. So you can also go down that path. Maybe a team is only interested in creating alerts for DFU. So when a device fails to update, we have that event. You can create a stream that only consumes those events, and you can create alerts.
Yeah, ring some alarm bells and gets everybody out of their beds and
the house is on fire.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the whole team, like, some
that's right.
Red lights all throughout the company. Yeah. And here also we added something really useful, which is to test that integration. So you can click here and see the event like arriving on the other end. So I'm going to click here to show later that event arriving here. But also I'm going to show the setup here on AWS. I'm not going to go deeply into the configuration because we have the steps required to create this on our documentations. But what I have here is an SQS queue, and also I have a Lambda trigger here. So I basically wrote like some basic code on the Lambda platform to consume those events on SQS. And then the code that I wrote here, also like really small, but it's using AWS SDK to write data to DynamoDB, which is like a really popular database on AWS. So every time an event arrives here, it like do some small transformation here and saves it to DynamoDB. And then after the data arrives here, we can go to the DynamoDB console here, and you can see that I already have some events here that arrived. So I can run here and see the probably the test event that I sent before. Let me send again here. Let's filter.
Right. So you're saying that this might be in addition to other stuff, because your DynamoDB might have data from multiple sources and might have lots of different inputs and things like that, right?
Let me filter here just for the test event. So we can see here our test event that we just sent here. Let me check the timestamps here. I'm always confused by the timestamp. We can send a new one here.
Yeah, whose time are we looking at, right?
Let me send another one here. And hopefully it's gonna arrive here. Yeah, now we have 6 events. So is this one is the last one here. There are some time zone conversion happening here. So we can see here the data arriving here. So I have the test data here, hello world. But I can also now simulate my device sending data here. So let's say that I want to filter by, what is the event type here is device string type. So I'm gonna filter here for device string type. And now I'm gonna press the button here on my device. So if I can, oops. Yeah, so it send the data, and I can filter the data here, and let's see the button event arriving here. Oh, by the way, this device is also sending temperature values every minute. So let me rerun the query here. I don't like this ordering here. It's making us really confused. Yeah, it was this button one event here. Let me send
I see.
Other
Got
one.
it. So it's ongoing. It's sending temperature in between. On
it's mixing. That's why it's a bit hard here. Also, the UX is not awesome. So we have now like button 0 here.
Right.
So, but basically we have the data here on DynamoDB that we just sent here. So we can see also the extra data. You have the project ID, the device ID, and also the button event here. Of course, we're not saving all the data that you're receiving here. We have some extra information, but I'm just not saving right now on DynamoDB.
Got it. And that's because of the transformation you did in the Lambda function. You threw some stuff away.
Yeah, here
I feel like we should tell the hardware people out there it's going to be okay if you don't understand all of this stuff. There are this is a big data pipe, right? I mean, that's kind of like one of the things about this is that if you have a web team that's like looking for all of the rich data and they want everything to come out, it feels like the output streams is like this really great way to kind of get everything passed through the Golioth cloud and then the Golioth backend to your data team. But for the hardware people out there, don't worry, you don't have to do all this stuff. I feel like I have to calm people down because this looks really complicated, but this is actually just because you are getting all of that metadata like you talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, of course, like if you don't need to do like all this fancy stuff on the cloud side, you can also like just like for the basic use cases, you can use our APIs. We make that really easy. Yep. So for the hardware people, like they can keep track of things here, like you just said. And then like let the cloud team like handle the events arriving on the other end that is going to be consumed by other teams, like maybe the front end, the mobile team, or other things.
Yeah. Right. It's like you can level up as you're troubleshooting things. You make sure you use the Golioth tools to make sure things are working, that your device is doing what you expect it to. But then when you need all of that other data, it's not some like simple toy kind of thing. It's like no, you can get every single event that happens with all of the rich data behind it because that's what your web team's going to want anyways.
Exactly. Yep.
That's great. So does it look? I mean, so we're just showing AWS here, but does it look different for Azure? I mean, like, between the different platforms, is it going to be a pretty similar experience, or is it just kind of dependent on what each platform needs and wants in terms of APIs?
That's a good question. Again, like as I mentioned before, we are using the Cloud Events project. We can put the link later on the description. So it defines some format for like message queues and also for HTTP transferring events over HTTP. So for example, on AWS and Azure, you're probably going to see almost the same format. Actually, it is the same format. Like it's going to be the same JSON encoded cloud event. But for HTTPs, it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to send like some extra headers to like, for example, differentiate the different event types instead of like using the message body. So it tries to reuse HTTP more because like you have other features in there. But when we're using like message queues, it sends like the whole message on the body. So yeah, so like I said, there are some small differences also documented on our website. So you can see the difference. And also like as we are going to be adding more implementations, those differences also might appear. But like I said, we're trying to stick as much as possible to those standards. So hopefully it's not going to change that much.
Yeah. And I think, so again, to go back for the, I'm looking out for the hardware people, the other things that we're going to show in future videos as well with the webhooks, that easy integration into a lot of different cloud and visualization platforms as well. So that's like Albert, that is kind of this more generic thing that a lot of different services out there will ingest these events nice and easily for you. And that makes it, makes more integrations possible. And we'll be kind of talking more about those here and on the Golioth blog as well.
Yep. That would be really exciting. I want to see more implementations of output streams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the visualizations and moving in different directions too. A lot of these tools, like you mentioned, Pipedream is another one that like as an integration tool, a lot of kind of pass stuff back and forth, and enablement tools like that really lets you do fun IoT things. So we'll be having more demos like that here. All right, Alvaro, thanks so much for showing us output streams and for making all this happen. It's a very exciting development, and I think it's going to enable large-scale operations to be even more data rich, and it'll make all of our users look really good for their end customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Always happy to be here sharing what we are building here at Golioth. So yeah, looking forward for the next one.